All right, part two of the Battle Brothers redesign. So this is a pretty comprehensive piece of work. We're going to talk about at Dark Brothers, which I think are a really solid army. I don't think this army is necessarily bad from a competitive sense. I just think it needs some tweaks as well. Just keep in mind that while we're working on these, I'll be putting out. I'm going to try to get an entire set of my goal for the end of this year is to work with the community, and there's some other community organizers who are building armies to have really a full set of Grimdark Future competitive army. So hey, like, subscribe, and comment. I'll be putting out some battle reports for 3.4, but I know the owner mentioned that 3.4 is coming out in September, so I haven't done any battle reports to really show from an analysis perspective, just because I don't want that to be stale already. So hey, like, subscribe, and comment. Help me get to 1,000 subscribers. It'd be a big deal for the channel. All right, Battle Brothers. As always, we'll run through these assumptions. I'm always assuming, this is for competitive play, so you're competing against basically competitively balanced armies. Just keep that in mind. This is not for casual play. I'm always assuming a 5 or 6 game GT, 3,000 points, no allies. All right, the criteria for Dark Brothers, they are pretty flexible. Well, let's just get the criteria in general is flexibility, raw efficiency, a good spell list, impactful elites, which are very important for a consistency's sake, right? If we're thinking about a tournament, you have your elites, the units that are doing things have to be able to do them consistently. And then cheap chaff is basically just as important, because the ability to trade away and protect your valuable units is also invaluable. Multiple meaningful upgrades. I still think that Caster 3 and Advanced Tactics are very powerful. Access to Scout and Ambush. Easy access to lots of 4. Be Undead, or some sort of morale mitigation. For Dark Brothers, they're a very good army, and I think I said this redesign is a lot more about trying to just make Dark Brothers work from how people want to play effectively Dark Angels. So they are pretty flexible. They're not very efficient. There's a few. I always consider the Dark Brothers to be a little more in the tweaks category, just to make some of their units more viable. They have a good spell list. They have some impactful elites. They don't have cheap chaff. They have some multiple meaningful upgrades, access to Scout and Ambush, access to AP4, and these Battle Brothers are undead. I mean, these Dark Brothers are undead. It's a really good army. Let's just get into my redesign. So why am I redoing this? Well, for one, I want to make Dark Brothers and all the Battle Brothers distinct from other Battle Brothers factions. I think I really want all these Battle Brothers factions, like their 40k equivalents, to really feel their own. I want some of the units to be more efficient so that people have more access to play. Like, you could build a really good Dark Brothers unit, but I don't think that you could build it with a lot of the models that people currently have in their Dark Angels army. So I also want to incorporate parts of the Dark Brothers that basically people can play things like Ravenwing, or people can play things like Deathwing. These are armies that are very important to the people who will be playing these armies, and let's not make them buy a whole bunch of new models to play a competitive army in OPR. So a lot of my Dark Brothers are really about a quality of life, and then we're going to look at a competitive list. So for now, let's just get into the custom army. All right, so competitive redesign. Let's get into it. I did tweak some of the spells to make them a little more shooting focused. I kept this +2 AP on them. It's just really solid, and that's fine. I gave them actually a +1 to hit for shooting, which I think is doubling up. Makes them a little more of a balanced army, and actually I gave them -1 AP in melee. So this is, I haven't given them any defensive bonuses other than the -1 in AP. I'm trying to just, give these guys some really good ones, and I think keeping them with the Dark Passage is just really solid. All right, so going into the leaders, you're going to notice that I've really added, I wanted to beef up the Ravenwing and the Deathwing's side of the Battle Brothers. So the first thing is I have a Dark Spear Master. He's tough 9. He's got some really good shooting. I did limit some of his upgrades, so really just Advanced Tactics and Ambush. I've given him the ability to get an Energy Sword, but this guy is actually just a really solid shooter, putting out about 11 shots a turn, AP1 or AP2. He's expensive, but actually I think this guy's really good, and he's a really pivotal part in the army, so I did include him. I also have the Dark Master Destroyer. One thing I've done is that with the Deathwing Terminators especially being a little more elite, I did give them Dark Determinate, which is basically just a 6-up, feel no pain. It's really good. They all still come with Grim. Again, one of these guys, he's a little more limited in his upgrades, but he's still really good. And then I've also given him the ability to have a company standard and then have a separate upgrade as well. I go back, I've talked about this before, that I really want the standard Terminator with their Stormbolter Power Fist to be very effective. So I've given them an option to bring an assault shotgun. That's going to work very well with their ambush, which is now optional. Of course, optional is now part of it because Dark Assault is optional. And then we've just given them some standard upgrades as well. So that's the difference, is mainly just making these Deathwing a little better than your standard Terminator with a little 6-up feel no pain. A Dark Brother is, of course, the standard. I've gone into some of this stuff before with my... one thing I did add, and we're going to get into this later, is the Plasma Carbine. We'll talk about this when we get into some of the Raven Wing stuff. All right. Dark Mage Destroyer, very similar to what I've done with all the chain, in the sense I've given them an energy staff and an assault shotgun. So you can actually run this guy relatively cheap. Same thing with the Dark Mage Destroyer. I've covered this before in previous episodes on the Battle Brothers, but it's similar where the Mage has his own set of upgrades. He's a caster 2, goes up to caster 3. And I like this separating some of the upgrades. I want the HQ units, the heroes, to feel very different. I then have, a Dark Elite Pathfinder, which again I've done, given a warning cry option, and just, again, separated some of his upgrades. All right, let's get into the Dark Pathfinders. The Dark Pathfinders are pretty similar to what they were, other than they just get a warning cry. This is something I'm standardizing where I want all armies to have a warning cry upgrade. I think that is just so important that I think all armies should have an option to get warning cry. So I just did that with the Dark Pathfinders. The Dark Brothers as well, nothing's really changed with them. I'm just, the company standard as well, so that they can give a little morale mitigation. Dark Assault Brothers, very similar, where I've just given them the limited pistol to help out with the hybrid attacks. Nothing really is different. The Dark Destroyers, you're going to notice something, that we have 2 sets of Dark Destroyers. One, I want them to actually have some sort of elite, and we're going to get into this as well. But the regular Dark Destroyers are very similar to the existing ones, where they have an option to get Dark Assault and just tweak some of their upgrades. Mainly the thing I tweaked is just giving them the ability to bring an assault shotgun as well. So that's going on there. And then, so that's here. So I can just, again, I want to give destroyers an ability to have a short-ranged option for the gun, just to help out with that hybrid tax. Then I have the Dark Command Destroyers. So these guys are actually unique to the Dark Brothers army. I want every one of these Battle Brothers armies to have their unique special units. And these are the Dark Command Destroyers. One, they're technically sort of the elite Ravenwing. The Elite Deathwing, so they do get a little extra 6-up feel no pain. I also just give them the ability to give a +1 to physical. They can get a protective aura. So actually, this Deathwing Dark Command Destroyers, they feel really powerful. They don't have some of the upgrades like the shields, but they do have just some extra upgrades. I've tried to separate some of the upgrades between the 2 of them. I didn't want every one of them to have the exact same upgrades, but I still think these Dark Command Destroyers are super good, with the ability, 1, just to give a unit regeneration, and 2, a protective aura. Just, a really solid unit as well, that I think that someone could run a really good Ravenwing army. A good Deathwing army as well. And then I have the Dark Command Bikers, and these guys as well are just one thing I've been doing on I've been tweaking this, is I want all bikers now to have just a mounted shotgun option. I want to sort of help with some of the hybrid taxes on these, where they're already fast. Let's give them a short range option as well. So that's just something as well. The other thing is that these Dark Command ones, they actually come with plasma carbines. Now, this is similar to the existing thing. I've just lowered those to 18 inches because actually in the current 10th edition rules, their plasma carbines are 18 inches. So I wanted to match that with 10th edition as well. Giving them the ability to either get some heavy pistols or heavy rifles. The other thing is that I looked at the 10th edition codex and I did, I did tweak some things. So I've actually given these guys a company medic as well and an advanced tactics. So now you've got these dark command bikers that you can actually run a Ravenwing army now. That you have these mounted shotguns that can help with the hyper attacks. You can give these guys actually energy swords or energy fix, so you can run them sort of hand to hand. They've got the advanced tactics. Like the Ravenwing are actually going to be very maneuverable. So the dark command bikers, and then we have the dark brother bikers. Again, two different squads, so they can run an all Ravenwing army. And one thing I noticed in 10th edition, they did have a unit where basically giving them bonuses for monsters. So I actually just gave an option for these guys to get a Slayer upgrade. And again, they can actually, they're a little more, the Dark Brother bikers are actually a little more, have a few more upgrades. So they can get actually these, anyone can get an energy sword that can play more hand to hand. And again, we've got that mounted shotgun to help with the pistol attacks as well. So again, just really wanted the what I wanted from the Dark Brothers is that I wanted their Terminators and their Bikers to be really effective and to be able to play one of those units. So that's that. Pathfinder Bikers have stayed very similar. Just looking at that as well, nothing has really changed on them. I didn't want to give them shotguns because they already have Scout. Didn't want to be too cheesy about that. Dark Support Brothers are basically the same. Nothing has changed. A Dark Support Bike is the same. So when we get into some of their vehicles, nothing has really changed. What I did do is on the Dark Attack Speeder, I did tweak things. So an optional transport here, optional ambush, because you can actually run this guy pretty heavy long range shooting. You're going to notice I've done this with all of them. I've upped the minigun AP to AP2. I think the assault cannon is such a powerful weapon in 10th edition that I want it to actually feel a little more powerful than a heavy machine gun. So I think AP2 on those miniguns is really great. And then we've got the Dark Shroud Speeder is similar with just an optional ambush. And again, these guys have some very long range shooting. I don't think they should just automatically come with ambush. That just sort of doesn't quite feel there. Again, these guys can double up on the minigun as well. I'll just quickly, the vehicles and monsters are pretty similar. So the Dark Brothers in particular, a lot of their Dark Walkers, they're just sort of similar to the existing Battle Brothers. I won't spend too much time on them. Then basically saying that a lot of their vehicles are very similar in upgrades to the existing Battle Brothers vehicles. You can just sort of see here. Again, one thing I did do with the vehicles, I did tweak some of the shooting, especially when it comes to the tank, where I've taken this demolition cannon and I've removed the indirect on it. That's its comparison to like a Vindicator, and the Vindicator isn't an indirect weapon. So I actually want this thing to feel a little more like its 40k equivalent. So just keep that in mind. I did tweak some of the weapons, especially some of them that have indirect. I've actually lowered the range on some of the indirect weapons, and like the demolition cannon, I've just removed the indirect. The Dark Heavy Tank, as always, I've removed the transport and made that optional because I think that to try and get this thing sort of under 750 so he can run it in 2,000 points. I think that's very important. And also there are Land Raider variants that don't have transport capacity. So let's sort of match that with the equivalent here. The artillery gun is the same thing I did with other Battle Brothers factions. And then the aircraft, I won't go into them. They're very similar as well. So the Dark Brothers, they don't have a lot of changes from the existing Battle Brothers, other than their destroyer options, where you can now have two sets of destroyers, a command and a regular, and you can have two sets of bikers. So now you really can run a Ravenwing heavy army that I think is effective, also with some of those mounted shotguns instead of. So you can actually run a little bit more of a hand-to-hand Ravenwing army, so you can just help out with the hybrid attacks by not having to bring heavy rifles as well. So that's just some quality of life things so that people can play Ravenwing a little more close range. And I go back to it, I want these armies to support their existing 10th edition counterparts, but also be a little more flexible. Like, I think that with some kit bashing, you can put mounted shotguns, you can magnetize things. So I want to give players that option. All right, let's look at a competitive list. All right, for a competitive list, I have tended to go for a little bit of a hybrid army where we have this is what I consider a standard Dark Brothers army, where it has a little bit of Deathwing, a little bit of Ravenwing, a little bit of everything. So we've got a Dark Master Destroyer who's running Dark Assault. I think that Dark Assault's so good. I've got him with War Chant as well. We've got a Dark Mage Brother who is running just the Caster 3. He's got his Energy Staff and Assault Pistol to help out. I've got two Dark Pathfinders that have given the warning cry with shotguns. 130 points is a little pricey, but they are, I think they're still pretty solid. Shotguns on those Pathfinders are great. I've got actually a 10-man unit of Dark Brothers that I've got with twin heavy machine guns. This is sort of an anti-chaff squad that I've got with medical training. And I've got a 5-man Dark Brothers with just rifles as well. So those are sort of like the quasi-chaff units with the Dark Brothers and Pathfinders. Then I've got, a big 6-man squad of Dark Destroyers that I'm running with those energy maces. That's going to work really well with that Dark Mage. You can put that plus 2 AP on the charge on them. So that's going to be really nasty with Dark Assault. I've got some Dark Brother Bikers that I've got with some Plasma Carbines and Heavy Rifles. So they're expensive. 660 points is pricey, but they can put out a lot of firepower. They've also got the ability to split fire, so they've got the Heavy Rifles and Plasma. They can really do some damage to 2 units a turn. And then I've actually got 2 Dark Attack Speeders, which I think are really solid. This is one with a heavy minigun and then the Quad Plasma Rifle. So each of them are 300 points, but this is definitely a finesse army. It's a very elite army, but I think it's an army that you've got the chaff, you've got the hand-to-hand, and you've got the shooting that you really can use maneuverability to your advantage here. And it's an elite army, but I think it's an army that'll do very well, and it'll really be very difficult to kill because of that Grim as well. All right, so that is a dark. This is a Dark Brothers competitive army that I think would be really good. All right, hey, thanks for watching. I'd love to get feedback. Like, subscribe, and comment. Hey, send me your custom armies if you want a review. Thanks so much.